Hello, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going?
Explain yourself about the D20 thing.
Explain myself about the D20 thing.
I'm a
Well,
traveler referee, so I'm a 2D6 guy. You're a
uh,
D20 guy?
I plus I'm a D20 guy, hence the apologist. And more, I happen to have found a couple of games that use a die I don't really like, but I like all of the rest of the system.
Oh, really?
um, yeah, because I think 3.5 and Pathfinder and Dungeon Crawl Classics are pretty much the only games that have solved the D20. And you could argue that Dungeon Crawl Classics isn't really a D20 system because they use, all the weird dice, the D16 and all of that. And they minimize randomness in that way. But 3.5 and Pathfinder minimize randomness with just having giant modifiers where, if you're by the time you're, halfway through the game, the thing you're good at, you've got a plus 20 or so too, then the D20 isn't nearly as random as it is in most other D20 systems, where it's like, here's this D20, you add two to it. It's like, okay, so my skills kinda that they only matter 10%. I'm supposed to be a skilled fighter, but the other 90% of me being a skilled fighter is just total randomness. Like that's a problem. But if you mitigate it with that and like the taking 10 system, then it can be fine. It can be there for when situations really are down to randomness.
It could be like your character's skilled in anti gravity environments, and then you put them near a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like their skill's not going to help them.
Yeah. Um, or they're a great fighter, but they're using a crappy beat up rusted sword, and it's no good. Maybe your system doesn't have a it doesn't have rules for the sword being crappy, adding a specific modifier one way or the other.
Well, what if they're a fighter but they don't have a weapon? What happens then?
Oh yeah. I guess it depends on your system, but normally it's like Pathfinder and a lot of other games will handle it like you can only do non-lethal damage. So if the thing's like a construct or a zombie or something, you're just not gonna be able to do anything to it.
Okay, so the reason why we're here is the HP, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hit points.
Are you
That's
for
the
it? Are you for it or against it?
I I think it's an unfortunate but oftentimes necessary abstraction. Because games that don't have hit points, they can be either obtuse in that you can tell the designers are trying really hard not to acknowledge that sometimes you have to have an abstraction with a tabletop, or they end up being way too lethal, where it's just, oh, you don't have hit points, you're dead. Or they get weird things like what uh some of the Powered by the Apocalypse systems have, where it's like, oh, you get hit, well, instead of taking damage, you get to choose what happens to your character, and you just get a condition. And it's like, no, I threw a rock at your head. You don't get mad because I threw a rock at your head. A rock is either hitting you in the head or it's not. It's
Yeah, in my games, uh, mostly traveler, your hit points are your attributes. So if you have a strength of 7, uh, it's the your physical attributes. So your strength, your endurance, your
mm,
dexterity. So you add up all those points. That's how many hit points you have, basically.
okay.
So if your strength, you're doing something, your strength gets hit, you subtract some points from your strength. So now you're a weak.
Mm,
So now you're a weaker character.
that's interesting.
Temporarily until you go see a hospital and they can sew you back up or
Mm.
fix the broken bone you have.
A lot of D20 systems handle it similarly with like attribute drain and the like, but I guess we have to talk about constitution then, or similar stats, where usually in most games the health is derived just from one stat,
Yeah.
which you and I both are not like the biggest. We don't care about balance that much. We care about
No.
what makes sense. Because sometimes stuff isn't balanced.
If the cave is full of ninja fighters, I don't care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
If it's full of cultist priests, I don't care.
some people but some people don't like the hit points just being based on one attribute, because it's like, well, everyone wants to be healthier, everyone wants to be able to take more hits, so you lead to uh but I would say that's more an issue of point buy and things like that, with, well, okay, I'm never going to have a character that's low constitution or low body in Shadowrun, or whatever your game calls its the statistic that derives health from. um but yeah, like if you get your constitution drained or damaged from some like poison or something in a D20 system, yeah, your health goes down with it until you get that fixed.
Yeah.
So it's pretty similar in that way.
Well,
um
because Traveler is like Aliens,
mhm,
the movie.
mhm,
All those space grunts, the colonial marine types.
mm.
They all start out relatively healthy. They wake up from their hypersleep. They're in good shape. They're doing their morning squats. But by the end of the day, half of them are dead, I think. That's how
Mm,
Traveler is.
mm,
That's if your character is just going to be gung ho, guns
mm,
blazing, just charging into a firefight, because that's the thing to do. Or you could role play. Your character doesn't have to just be a tank, just constantly, just I'm a lethal weapon. Unsheath me and point me where the enemy is.
yeah, yeah. I think the mechanics, and especially a lot of modern D20 systems, run into that issue where in 5e you have like you just, whenever you sleep, you gain all of your health back. Like, what? you
What?
you just get, you lay
That's
down on
too
your
that's too video game.
lay
That's
down on your
Fallout
bed, yeah,
Fallout
bedroll or
3.
whatever, and then yeah, it's
Yeah.
like not even Morrowind did that. Like there's plenty of video games that understand that that's goofy. And yeah, so you've been stabbed 17 times. Not only are you somehow still conscious, you just need to sleep that off, and then all of your wounds will magically regenerate. So everybody is playing Wolverine. And I think that's the goofy part of it. HP needs to be somewhat permanent. It needs to be something that does go up and down over the course of a session or over the course of multiple sessions. But yeah, that's, at that point it becomes kind of like, it flips back around to, it might as well be a binary system. Either you are at 0 health or you have health.
Yeah, I like it when if you're not paying attention, you start noticing that maybe you should get yourself healed because
Mm,
you're not able to do fast reflex actions like you used to.
mm,
You're dizzy.
mm,
You're not able to concentrate when you're picking a lock, like you've got a banged up head or something.
mm. Are you this is something I haven't done before, but I've thought about doing it. Are you a fan of the idea of just telling the players when their character gets injured, and not telling them exactly how much they're injured by? And maybe somebody needs to go and make like a medical check or something to see exactly how many hit points they've lost.
Well, the damage gets reported
Hmm.
either from the player or from the referee,
Hmm.
and then the player just subtracts that from their damage, from
That's
their
how I do
armor.
it. Yeah.
And then I let them, it depends. When we start a game, we decide, does the player get to choose what gets damaged? Or does the
Interesting.
referee say what gets damaged?
Interesting. Huh.
Because it's either your dex or your endurance or your strength.
Hmm.
And when all three are reduced to 0, you're dead. Now, I trust my players. So they're going, if they're doing something with their arm's probably going to get damaged.
Yeah.
And if their arm is already damaged, they're going to damage it some more. Instead of, oh, it was my leg, or, oh, it was, they're looking at their character sheet to see what they can whittle away next and still be okay, No, it's like when I play Skyrim, when you level up and you get to put a perk somewhere. Usually if I was doing a lot of archery for like the last half hour and then I level up, I'll put a perk in archery. I won't just decide, I'm gonna put this perk in speechcraft. And I haven't talked to anyone in this entire game session all day.
Yeah, that is an issue I have with the like downtime level ups in a lot of D20 systems. That is something that irritates me, where it's just like, oh, well, off screen, even if like there isn't really any off screen time that's passing, your character just goes and picks up these new skills when they level up, and it's like,
yeah,
who are they going to do this? What are they doing to get that skill? What?
Yeah.
Because leveling
Fallout
up is
3.
It's like never role played. Yeah, it's even in games that are role played, the level up is not role played because the system doesn't really support it.
Morrowind would throw some cookies at you, and you can tell where to put the cookies on your character sheet.
Yeah.
And but I would try to focus on, well, what have I been doing? And same with Oblivion, Fallout 3. I've been using the heavy guns for like the last half hour.
Yeah.
Now I get a perk, and I choose Gun Nut, or I choose Iron Belly or something. Or I can carry heavier guns now. Something.
Yeah, and going with that, that's sort of a, I suppose, in an issue with D20 systems is, every time you level up, you get more hit points. Where, other systems that use not really hit points, but like the hit tracker, like in Shadowrun, you don't gain hit points as your character gets stronger, really. They just are sat at pretty much what you start at the beginning of the game. There's ways to increase it, but it's really difficult. And, that leads to stuff like in 5e, where you've got these huge amounts of hit points, and it's just, we stare at each other in combat. And once the fighter is sat up to the monster, neither of them move for like 2 hours, and they're just rolling D20s at each other and hoping one of them has the bigger numbers at the end of the day. And to me, if you're going to do that, wouldn't you want either the attack numbers to be bigger or the health numbers to be smaller, so that you can, figure that out faster? If your combat's not that interesting, then maybe you want it to at least be quick, right?
Yeah. Now sometimes, like in Skyrim, I'll think, oh, I'm a god. I'm basically level 70. I'm now a god in this game. But then I meet an NPC who I haven't seen before in the game, and they're super high level, and they're shooting me with lightning, and I'm not paying attention to my health, because I'm just used to my health not being touched at all by enemies on the random outskirts of some village. But this particular NPC, each time they shoot me, my health is cut in half, and I'm not paying attention. And the next thing I know, I'm lying on the street dead. I was like, what happened? How did this happen? So, and then I hope that I saved before any of that happened. So I rarely die in Skyrim now, because I'm at god level. Now Fallout 3, I just know all the ways you can die in that game, and I know what gets you killed, and I can play Fallout 3 for days on end without ever dying, getting my character killed.
Yeah.
But in Skyrim, in my current playthrough, I've modded it maybe 7 or 8 times as far as combat goes. So I have to relearn how the combat works halfway through playing a game. And I get in the habit of, oh, this weapon works great for my race, for this against this enemy. type, and then I get used to that routine. Pow pow dead, pow pow dead, and then all of a sudden I put in a different combat mod, and now it's like, holy crap! I can't swing as fast as I used to. What? I
Mhm.
have to get trained again, and how to. It's kind of cool, but it's kind of jarring that you have to relearn game mechanics.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I get impatient. I don't want to start a whole new game just because I put in a whole new game mechanic into the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that's true. Um, I know that's kind of similar to I guess like gaining new skills as a character when you level up, something that changes the way you do your combat, as far as like the different abilities your characters have. Maybe you have just even as simple as like, well, here's a skill that's way better than it used to be. Um and having to sort of relearn, or fighting specific enemies, having to learn, your strategies. Maybe your bread and butter as a fighter is you run up, you trip the guy, and then you stab him when he's on the ground, and you're fighting like a giant centipede or something, and it's like, well, I'm not going to trip that.
Yeah.
So what do I do? um
Yeah, you're like,
but
this is how you kill a human, or this is how you
mm,
kill an elf, this is how you kill an orc, this is how you kill a
mm,
hag.
yeah.
And I don't remember how the vanilla Skyrim does it, but I think I have a mod now where to kill a ghost you have to have a certain kind of weapon.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
You can't
because
just swing a sword at him. Sword
yeah,
just goes
because
through.
by default they changed it from Oblivion and literally every prior game in the series where you needed silver, or I think minimum ebony,
Yeah.
to do anything to him. Now silver just does more damage to him, but ghosts
Yeah.
were just like reskinned bandits in Skyrim. So yeah,
Yeah, you
um,
still I think, I don't know, you can mod it so that
mhm.
your sword goes through them or it
Mhm.
bounces off of them like it's a person.
Oh, weird.
It's a person that's just glowing, like you said.
Mm. But
They're
yeah, like that's
sort of
an
transparent.
yeah, but I mean, like, there's an example of using hit points to represent something. You're using your silver sword to hit the undead or a werewolf or a vampire or something, so it's doing like 1.5 twice as much damage as it otherwise would. Um, Instead, because if you just had to hit, it wouldn't really make sense that you still have to hit the thing, so it's not gonna make it easier to hit, but it will do more damage when it hits the thing. So
Yeah.
that's something you can represent with hit points.
Yeah, because earlier we were talking about how, the characters doing something, so when they level up, they increase something
Mhm.
that has something to do with what they were doing.
Mhm.
Well, I try to get my players to do the reverse of that. So when they're injured, it's related to whatever it was they were doing.
Mhm.
So oh, instead of losing endurance or something, they're going on this hiking thing, whatever, and something anyway. Their shortness of breath, they're breathing toxic fumes, whatever, it's destroying their lungs. They choose to instead, oh, my little pinky got hurt. My dexterity has gone down one, something like that. Like, no. I mean, I'll still let them do it, but I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it. What they write down on their character sheet, that's up to them. But I'm trusting them that,
Hmm.
it's like I'm evenly distributing all my damage across my
Yeah,
body.
it's interesting because hit points they're simultaneous. Oh, I've disappeared. I can't raise my hand. Is that consistent? No. Weird.
It, it,
Okay.
it lost your
Uh,
face.
eh,
Put your hand over your face.
oh, almost.
You're not
Yeah, there
real.
we go.
You're not real.
Okay, there we go. Interesting. Um, no, it's interesting because HP is simultaneously an abstraction and not really specific as to what it was. Because if you treat HP as like literally how many times can you get hit before you die, you get the like awful D&D combat that's typical, where it's just it's two dudes in a back alley stabbing each other 50 times, and by the 20th time you're going, how are either of us still alive at this point? We've been stabbed being stabbed only does 4 damage. We've got 50 health. I don't think something's wrong here. But
Yes,
also,
that's how
yeah,
Traveler 5 is. You can
uh,
shoot somebody point blank and they don't
uh,
die because the bullets don't do as much harm as they have
uh,
health for.
yeah.
And you have to do all of their health in a bullet shot to kill them.
Oh, weird.
You
That's
can't just,
bizarre.
it doesn't subtract their health and then you get to shoot them again the second time to kill him. No, it has to all be done that one time you shoot.
That's really
It's
strange.
weird. It is
uh,
strange.
um,
So I don't use
but
those
yeah,
rules.
but yeah, and it's also more granular though, because then if you have hit points, that's usually indicating that you have like exhaustion and fatigue and being poisoned and all of that stuff separate rules. Most D20 systems have like, oh, there's this poison that affects your dexterity, or there's this spell that's affecting your dexterity, but it's not affecting your hit points, or maybe it affects it in addition to your hit points, but they're two separate uh stats that get affected. And that's the something that people always complain about, myself included, is that your character fights the same at 1 hit point as they do on a million hit points. It doesn't matter how much they've been damaged. They're still fighting at top shape unless something else has happened to them.
Yeah. Now in total party skills,
Hmm.
you have 3 attributes. You have mind, body, mind, and spirit.
Hmm.
And then you have secondary versions of those. So you have health, sanity, and morale.
Hmm.
And those are based on your body, mind, and spirit.
Hmm.
So instead of your damage going to your body or your mind or your spirit, it goes to your health, sanity, or morale.
Hmm.
And if any of those go to 0, you're either dead, crazy, or uh, you just you just you're in a catatonic state, I guess.
Running
You're
away,
you're that
frozen
you're
in
that
fear.
you're the guy in the foxhole who refuses to get up and charge
Hmm.
the brigade. You're in a fetal position. You have no morale left.
Hmm.
And then the crazy person, they're the one you have to lock up in an insane asylum. They're super psychotic.
Hmm.
They'll just murder anything nearby.
Hmm.
So you write your character off. When one of those 3 attributes gets to 0, you basically write off your character and make a new one.
Hmm.
Unsalvageable. So I thought that was cool. So you don't have to
Hmm.
necessarily die in the game to lose your character. You just need to go crazy or just submit. Just submit to everything. You don't even answer like normal prompts from humans because you know the things you've seen, or you've given up on your life. You've given up on hope because your soul has been crushed. So total price skills works with vampires,
Hmm.
undead, that kind of stuff, and of course bullet wounds with
Yeah.
the health.
Hmm.
Then traveler just works on your physical stats,
Hmm.
and you're doing fine. You're doing fine, but air leak, oxygen levels, uh, self-destruct sequence, um, implosions, orbital decay, gunshot wounds, solar radiation, food poisoning. All these things can happen to your character.
Hmm.
Now they have medics, just like they have medics in Star Wars. Take Luke Skywalker to get his new hand fixed, or in Alien, they took Kane to the sick bay, see if they can get that thing off his face. They tried cutting off one of its fingers. And what was the one with Ripley? I mean, I guess Ripley got frozen a couple times. She would show up in a later movie somewhere.
Hmm.
and she would have nightmares about the alien being inside of her, coming out when she's laying there in the hospital. But at least she had I guess in the beginning of Aliens, I think she wakes up in some hospital ship or
Yeah, yeah,
starport, space station, something something. So she's in a clean bill of health at the beginning of the movie. But as the movie goes on, does she get wounded at all? She should have been dead when the mother queen alien's being sucked out of the airlock.
yeah. Now that you mention it, I don't think she gets hurt like at all. Because I mean, there's uh, is she on the like armored car thing they have that they crash into that bill? I think that might be like the yeah. I think that's like the
Yeah,
one like she gets a little bump like, but that's about it.
yeah, I don't remember. Was she the one driving the car?
Yeah, because
And she breaks the transaxle or something.
the old driver is like, "We gotta get the hell out of here."
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, we gotta go back for him." Because,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
she
she
just
shoves him out of
she
the
just
seat.
she just does the
Hey, Max.
Hollywood whiplash thing, sort of, kind of. She's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But at the end of the movie, she opens up the airlock.
Hmm.
The queen mother's hanging on her ankle,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she's got her elbow and arm and shoulder like this wrapped around the ladder, and she's got this air blowing on her. Her shoulder, with the weight of that queen mother alien on her leg, her arm should have been ripped out of its socket.
you, you think, yeah, you would think.
And then
Um,
after the alien goes out into space, she just casually nonchalance lifts up her leg over the door as the airlock's closing. With all that wind blowing against her, she's able to just lift her leg. Anyway, it's like, come on, really? She should have been cut in
yeah.
half. Because Bishop, he got ripped in half.
Hmm.
Reese, not Reese, what was his name? The guy that showed her how to use the gun. He gets acid sprayed on him, so it's like half a body
Yep.
for him.
Yep. I think one way that people should do hit points in systems where it's arbitrated as hit points is look at what the game doesn't have necessarily other mechanics for, because you can think of hit points as just just the physically, the being stabbed or shot or sprayed with acid or what have you.
Yeah,
um
if I'm in a game where there's a mile long of hit point boxes, I just call that fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like if the characters have a ton of hit points and your hit points based on constitution, well, constitution is not just health, it's also how much endurance you have. And in most of these D20 systems, there's no real system for having stamina, for expending stamina. So maybe the hit point losses aren't necessarily from being stabbed, so you don't get into these ridiculous fights of just the two dudes stabbing each other over and over again. But maybe it's something where your armor's protecting you, but you're still hit hard enough that that's taken some of the wind out of you, and that's what you're losing hit points from. You're you're swinging and just way in the fight, you aren't standing there while the other guy goes to swing at you and just like sitting and waiting. Maybe you have to really exert yourself, throw yourself out of the way to dodge, and that's really tiring. So yes, you dodged their attack, but you lost hit points.
So in your games,
Mm.
how do you get back your hit points? Just by standing still and waiting? Do you slowly get your health back?
You gain a little bit when you sleep, but not much. You can gain some by having somebody run up and use the medical skill on you, if and that'll be role played. They're not gonna walk over and just go, I use the heal skill on them, I'm gonna stitch them up, and it's like, well, they haven't been cut at all, why are you what are you doing here? But if somebody walks over and is like, ooh, you look beat from that, and hands them a glass of water or something, and just tries to yeah, gets him with the towel, plays the cut man, then that I'll recover some health from that. And then of course you have in fantasy the clerics and the oracles and whatnot with their healing magic. Um,
Yeah, in Traveler, the medic usually all they can do is maybe if they're good at it, they can prevent the character from going into shock.
mm,
Like they've lost an arm, they're
mm,
bleeding out. They could maybe give the person some morphine so the pain goes away, but they're still going to die if they don't get to a hospital.
mm,
But if the medic isn't there, that person's basically dead. They'll just bleed out. Unless the character role plays themselves, making a tourniquet for their arm and they're
mm,
pulling it with their teeth.
mm,
They've only got one hand to work with.
mm.
If they're role playing, I'll let them do the thing.
Yeah. And like also, lots of games will have like, oh, this attack inflicts bleed. It's like, well, no, if you've been stabbed, that inflicts bleed. I don't care what I don't care if the game doesn't say you don't technically have the bleeding mechanic penalty from, having your arm cut open, but it's like, well, if you don't do something about that, you're bleeding.
Yeah, some Traveler rules have bleed rules, like what part of your body got hit, so
Oh yeah.
there's more or less blood involved, or if you lose a certain percentage of damage at once, that could be
Mm,
considered some blood loss there,
mm,
bleeding out.
mm.
Um, I
Yeah,
let
and
the
like,
play. I let the players role play that stuff.
mm,
They say, "Oh hell, I just lost 4 hit points." They they know something drastic has happened, and
mm,
they choose which hand is missing, or arm is missing, or leg is missing. Even
mm,
though Traveler doesn't get that specific, it just says, "Hey,
mhm.
you lost this much strength,"
Yeah.
but it doesn't
And
say
yeah,
what part of your body.
yeah, and something I like to do, like if uh most D20 systems, you get 0 HP, you're unconscious, and then you need to go a little further to actually be dead. But I like having, every time somebody hits 0 HP and then they get, revived by either a medic or they just happen to stabilize of their own accord because they got lucky, or a cleric or something runs by and heals them. I like having, lasting injuries. You don't just,
Yeah,
because in too many games they just, you get to the brink of being almost dead, and then some guy comes over and goes, "Woo," and then you just pop back up, and you're like, oh, thanks, wow, that sucked, and then you move on with your life like nothing happened.
yeah. In most Traveler games, it's like the Sixth Sense. You ever see that movie
Yeah,
with Bruce Willis?
yeah,
He gets shot, and he's laying in the bed bleeding to death, and that's what you. Then it says like 6 months later, and you see him again walking around. You think, oh, okay, he's back to normal, but no, he died. He died in bed bleeding out.
mm,
He had gut shot. Now, in Traveler, if you get gut shot, you're probably gonna die. If your strength, if one of your 3 attributes goes to 0, you're still conscious. If you lose all your strength, you just don't have strength. If you lose all your
mm,
dexterity, you just can't do any dexterous anything.
mm,
If you lose all your endurance, you can't do any endurance thing.
mm.
And then if a second attribute goes out, then you're unconscious.
Interesting.
Basically, you're going into a coma at that point. And
Uh-huh.
if all 3 are gone, then you're dead. And in Traveler, most editions, when you sleep and wake up, you're just in worse shape because now you've got infection, disease is kicking in, gangrene.
Muscle atrophy. Mm,
Depends on what the players are
mm,
role playing. Depends
mm,
on the
mm.
theme, the tone, the setting.
Yeah.
There's no
Uh,
sleeping beauty. I wake up, all my hair's all fixed and my lipstick's back up.
yeah, that's something that
No.
always rubbed me the wrong way about 5e.
The girl, if the girl was retching or puking up when she passed out the night before, the next morning, um, she's probably coughing up a lung still because nothing's been done. She hasn't seen a doctor. There's no
mm,
penicillin or antibiotics or anything.
Hmm. Yeah, that's something I don't think enough people consider, even with like fantasy worlds where you do have clerics with their healing magic. It's like, well, does it heal the disease? Does it heal? Is this just like a thing that's like magically sealing up the wound? Is it just what's the magic doing? Is it accelerating how fast? Most people just play it as, oh, it heals 8 hit points. Okay, then you're fine now because you've got full hit points, so you must be fine now. And they don't think like how does the magic work? And you could just hand wave it as, well, it's magic, I don't need to explain it. But the
Well,
people,
do
if
they
magic
do
was real, the people in the world would wonder how it works. They would try to figure out exactly what it's doing.
well the players that don't role play healing HP,
Mhm.
do they role play losing HP?
Yeah, a lot of times they don't, but I would say it's more often that they'll role play losing HP than they will role play regaining it. um uh
Because on
mm,
YouTube a long time ago,
mm,
back when Black Lodge Games just started their channel,
mm,
long time ago, we would have these discussions about how do you role play missing HP during combat.
mhm,
And it's like, oh, it's just a flesh wound. Oh, you're
mhm,
starting to bleed.
mhm.
Oh, the knife digs deep into your neck. Oh, it's piercing your heart, kind of a thing.
Mm.
And I thought, no, just even back then I was thinking, no, just hit points is just fatigue is all.
Yeah,
If it
yeah.
reaches
I mean,
zero, you're basically unconscious
yeah.
or you can't
Eh,
move.
you can think of it that I think of like the I think of like the top end of your hit points as fatigue, and then later on that's how good are you at taking a hit. When the guy,
Now,
you
you
know,
played Pathfinder, right?
mhm,
One or two?
one. I
Is
play
two even
tested
out yet?
for, yeah, it's been out for a couple years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How does it
It can,
handle? How does it handle death? HP zero or HP negative HP or what?
I think it handles they took like a modified version of the death saves from 5e, but made it way more lethal. It is pretty much as soon as you get to 0 HP, it's like a guy just has to walk over and hit you one more time and you're dead.
So
Um,
zero or -1 basically is enough to
yeah,
kill you.
yeah, yeah, more or less. It was a very lethal system. It was when we were playtesting it. It was one of the issues is to get through basically any like vaguely difficult encounter. You had to have somebody playing a cleric whose job it was to stand there and go, every turn, I heal you, I heal you, I heal you. Don't die, don't die. You're bleeding, and this guy's just putting the blood back in you. Just
The magic flows through your veins.
Yeah, it was like simultaneously you felt like as the cleric you were doing a lot, but it was so boring because the moment you don't heal the party, they're like, "Oh man, I died. Why didn't you heal me?" And,
Okay, are you familiar with X-Men 3, the movie?
it's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah.
Do you remember the part where my ex-girlfriend tries to murder Wolverine?
Yeah.
She's going,
Yeah.
and she's just blasting away his skin. And then
Yeah.
his mutant powers are healing him back up as he's getting
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
closer to her.
Hmm.
And he's trying to stab her with his claws. And he finally gets close enough
Yeah,
to stab
that's
her.
right.
And she's like, thank you. She wanted, I guess she wanted to be put out of her misery, kind of, but her dark powers were like overwhelming. How would you handle HP for both of those characters in that scene?
Um, I would, so if I was running it in Pathfinder, I would have it that he's got fast healing, so every time on his turn he regenerates an amount of his health. That's just, stuff like, trolls and some demons and like unnatural stuff that has unnaturally fast, healing factors. Would
Okay,
have fast healing.
like a
Yeah, yeah.
troll in Skyrim.
Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, that's based on trolls in D&D.
Okay.
They regenerate health unless you hit them with fire, which Skyrim represents.
Or unless you mod them and then they just die when you set them on fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
But
fast regen then.
yeah, so every time it gets to his turn, he's regenerating his health as much as he's losing
Now,
it.
is
And
that
then
using an active power, like his mutant
no, it's just
regen?
something that happens. Just at the top of your turn, you go, oh, I have fast healing 10, so I regen 10 hit points.
Okay, yeah, I call that an active power. It's just something that's
Oh,
on.
okay. Oh yeah, I would say
It's
passive.
automatic
Yeah.
ability kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Now, what
And then
about when he stabs Jean Grey?
I guess that would mean Jean Grey just wouldn't have that much. That she wouldn't have that many hit points.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Well, that makes
she,
sense.
and because like if you try to think of them class wise, and we're not really talking about classes here, the whole rabbit hole there, but
We're not going to go to class and hit points or two
but
hit rolls. We're not going to use two
yeah,
hit
not to hit
rolls.
rolls, but as far as hit points go, the wizard only has you're more castery, not frontline combatant. They only have a d6 hit die that they're rolling every
But couldn't
level.
she? She has the power of the universe in her head, basically. Couldn't she
Mm.
just have magically healed herself or teleported herself away or something? Or
Well, that would be an action, and on her turn she didn't do that. She instead, used that action to attack.
I think she wanted to be put out of her misery, or something,
That
story
too,
wise.
Yeah.
It makes for a cool story.
Because otherwise, they would have gone, oh crap, this isn't working. I need to reposition. I need to try something else.
Yeah, or maybe using her powers, like in Gary over in Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot for Star Trek in the 60s. Gary is psionic. He has the power of the universe basically in his head. But the more he uses powers, he gets weakened and drains, and he almost loses the power. So maybe Jean Grey, using her powers to raise the skin off of Wolverine every 5 seconds, eventually it starts sapping her energy, and she gets down to a certain level where she's like, what am I doing? He's my best friend. We're X-Men.
Kineticists in Pathfinder are really cool with how they use hit points, because they can they basically take on burn the more powerful the abilities they get. So they can use I'm trying to think of a similar thing. Going with X-Men, almost like Cyclops, they can blast stuff out of their hands or their eyes, but the more powerful they do it, they take damage as they're doing it. So and they get more and more powerful the more burn they have. So you can have this guy that's he's basically one-shotting everything. He just points at you and then lightning strikes you and you're dead instantly. But he's he's running on a hair's breadth. If anything, something just has to knock him over and he is passed out unconscious.
Oh, okay. Because when I was a kid reading about Colossus, basically his ruby eye laser, whatever, that was always on, always. So he had to keep his eyes closed all day long until he got the visors put on his head. Now, his ruby laser sight is basically lightsaber. Lightsabers can cut through anything. Last I checked, in the 70s, they can cut through anything. Now, not so much.
No.
But in the 70s, a lightsaber could cut through anything, even Captain America's shield, even Tony Stark's armor, Ultron's armor. And so, same for Cyclops. His laser vision should be able to just chop through anything. Now, are you for or against that? Is that too much power a character would have? Because it doesn't drain the character doing this stuff. And lightsabers seem to have unlimited power. You don't recharge them, do you?
Yeah.
Do you use Vancian? Do you do What I'm trying to say is, do you do Vancian type magic in your games?
I do, yeah. I would say it depends on the tone. If I was going to run a sort of superheroes game like that, I wouldn't run Pathfinder, I don't think. But yeah, I do use Vancian casting where the wizards, your clerics, what have you, they can do crazy stuff, but there's only they only have so much of that in a day that they can use.
Do you is let's say you have a power, it's you can use it, but it drains, and then you gotta wait before you can use it again. Is that based on hit points?
Um,
Like, what would that be based on? Like, how long do you have to wait before you can do the power again?
um,
Is there a buffer that refills or something?
Usually the way that Vancian is represented is that you're studying your spells, or if you're a cleric, you're praying to your god for an hour every day, and you do that. If you for some reason you can't do that during your once a day, then you don't get to prepare new spells. And the way that Vancian magic is represented is kind of you kind of have to trick the natural order of things, and outsmart the ways that the universe works. And the universe is constantly responding in different ways because it doesn't want you to just invent fire in your hands and shoot it at people. So you have to do it a little bit differently every time. It's sort of like you're finding bugs in the universe, and something out there is constantly, going back and bug fixing, but they don't quite have it right. So you have to figure out a new way to break the universe.
Now, is it like Star Trek where you figure out this new technology and then you don't use it again for the rest of the series?
I mean, that depends on the player, right? You might prepare a spell once, and then something, because sometimes in D20 systems you have the ridiculously specific spells that are you know I'm trying to think of one in particular. Lots of druid spells are weirdly specific. There's one that is I used a couple sessions ago because we're going through a really tall patch of grass, and it lets you see through 60 feet of vegetative matter as if it were transparent. That's one I don't think I'm going to use again for a while.
Now,
Because
when you say specific, kind of oddly specific, do you mean like in the rules wise, you're going through the rule book and you find this little obscure paragraph that says, "Oh, by the way, this is how this spell works"?
no, more so like the use cases for it are very narrow. Like, how often are you running around giant tall fields of
Oh,
grass that you need to be able to see through?
I see.
You
So
know,
it's like this is
um,
what the spell does. This
yeah,
is what the spell's meant to do. It's what
yeah,
it's used for. It's commonly used for this. Yada yada.
mm,
Good luck on finding black holes in your game setting.
yeah, yeah. And but if it's any of your many spells that do damage, you're probably not going to suddenly, just like the fighter's not going to suddenly stop using a sword, the wizard's probably not going to suddenly stop wanting to set people on fire, if that's the thing they do. Yeah.
I mean, okay, does Pathfinder have space, or is it just
Mm, yeah. Uh,
ground adventures?
there is space. It's not super fleshed out, but there there is space travel if you wanted to do that sort of thing. It's like very high level, very limited. Most people in the world have not interacted with that or even know it's
Okay,
possible.
okay. Is it spaceships, or is it just teleporting, or
Um,
wormholes?
So there's spells that can teleport you to other planets, but that's really sketchy because basically the bigger distance you're going, there's more margin for error. So you might just teleport into a vacuum or teleport to the wrong planet, or
Do you have to
uh,
see the planet to get there, or you have to be there
you
already? Be there
if
before?
you've seen it before, I think you can teleport back to it pretty much foolproof. If you have a really good description of it, such as like a drawing by someone who's been there, that's pretty good. If you just have a verbal description of it, that's okay. If you know vaguely what you're looking for, that's not great. If you just have no idea and you just make up a planet that you want to go to, that's just not going to work. It'll send you to some random hellscape, probably.
Escape. Now, if you're, is it let's say you want to teleport yourself to some other planet.
Hmm.
Do you have to have some sort of mana built up to where you can do that? Or can
It
you
would
just
just
go
be
poof, 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 poof anytime you want? You just go poof, poof. You know,
well,
you're
you would have to prepare that spell however many times you needed it to be prepared
really.
throughout the day. So yeah, if you wanted to, you have say you're a you know you
What does
have
that look like? How would you role play doing that? At the start of your character's day, how would you role play doing that?
they look in their book, and I would begin studying I know we're going to do planetary travel, so I'm going to uh, look through and meditate on these certain spells that I think I'll need here. Or if I don't know what we're doing today, I have no idea. We could get into a fight. We could need to transport someone. So I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna sort of prepare a catch-all of
Are
everything.
they specific spell things that you're reading, or is it
Mhm.
um metaphors, or it's
Um,
mythical story that you're reading about some mythical character who's a hero and he does these things?
it's one of the things that I like about fantasy and casting is every wizard has their own way of writing their spells down. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
sort of like everybody has like a mnemonic aid that helps them unravel these mysteries. So studying
That's neat.
riddles, studying that sort of thing, and that's twofold. You can make it look the magic. You can make it look however you want it to look, and whenever you pick you kill some other wizard and you pick up his spell book and you want to learn what spells he has, you don't just rip the pages out and stuff them into your book. You have to figure out how he was writing down, what's his way. You have to sort of unravel the way that he was writing
Oh,
the
that's
stuff
cool.
down.
So I think it's neat if a player is like
Yeah.
their character's reading a book
Yeah.
and it's a mythology thing and
Mhm.
somehow it relates to what they're doing in the
Mhm.
adventure.
I'll
And
have the mine be like pictograms, like different different complex symbols to sort of evoke like the alchemical origins of a lot of magic, where they think like the more complex the symbol is, the more powerful it is. And every day preps, he has to add a new symbol to it to make it still work. Um, and
yeah,
like the more powerful spells take up more um they take up more pages. So like a level 1 spell takes up 1 page in your book, a level 2 spell takes up 2 pages in your book. I can't change your mind, Kevin. Although if they were dead, would they be at 0 hit points or minus constitution hit points?
minus eight. It's always minus HP in my book if you're gonna go minus.
Okay, okay.
You start out with 30 hit point and you're dead when you're minus 30 hit point.
Hmm.
That way you
Yeah.
have plenty of time to figure out what you're gonna do between
Yeah.
0 and minus 30.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Are
until
you
you got to
unconscious
0,
at
you're
0?
perfectly fine. You're
Are you
perfectly
unconscious?
fine at hit point 1 until you get to 0, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh.
Okay.
So yeah, I was thinking about the characters doing the spell that protects the city from fire from the
Mm-hmm.
sky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of non-specific, this story, this fable about this kid who is able to stop fire from raining down on the city from the sky. And it turns out uh it just so happens that there's this big ass mothership thing in orbital decay. It's going to come raining down on the village and all of its radiation and fusion plants and nukes on board the thing. They're all going to detonate over the city. Everyone's going to be killed. But he read this book about some boy and he did some enchantment thing. He did some practice. He learned a few spells and now he's prepared. They dress him all up in the thing. He's wearing the outfit you're supposed to wear when you do the spell. And they know this is going to happen because they've been getting radio signals for days, whatever, on their weird television thing from the ship. They know, you know, hundreds of years have gone by. That's how long it takes for the radio signal to get to this planet. He's all dressed up, and he says the things, he does the things, and then these laser turret, cyber whatever cannon things come out of the ground and just pummel the ship that's coming towards them and just blast it into a million pieces. They're protected. It turns out that the little village that they've been living in is some sort of a defense battle fortress to shoot enemy things coming towards them. Anyway. And when he says the magic words, he's basically doing voice recognition for the thing, and it just powers up. And it auto locks on the mothership that's coming at him. Now, it could just be the mothership could just be a friendly. But, the thing doing the targeting and the shooting, it doesn't know. The villagers just know that fire is going to rain down on them. Because the guy on board the mothership, he's been saying, hey, protect yourselves. I'm coming in hot.
I think most people know, if they've looked into much of either Pathfinder or like Greyhawk, lots of D&D, that it is like most D20 settings are like a very far future post-apocalypse, and a lot of the magic items aren't really magic.
Yeah, everything's ruined. Everything's post-apocalyptic fantasy, right?
Yeah, because
like every place you go to is a ruin for some reason.
And like nothing's wands in Pathfinder, wands and staves and pretty much every magic item in Pathfinder, it has like an activation word that you have to say to get it to do the thing, or like a motion you have to do with the wand, and it's like, well, that's that's probably old technology that they don't understand anymore. And there's lots, there's lots of stuff where they're trying to figure out, I don't know how this works. We just know that it does work. And, we found, you go into these ruins and there's tons of these old magical artifacts, but we don't know how to make them. We just know how to get them to work. Yeah. You shake it up a little bit and it does something. It's like, ooh, cool.
Now in Numenera, I feel bad for the characters in that game, because you make a character and then you go out on a quest and you find artifacts and you figure out how they work, and most of them are very dangerous and you die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I would have handled that a little bit different for a setting, instead of trying to figure out how this stuff works. Maybe that would be a secondary thing in the game that happens. I'm sure it is. I'm sure you can just go out and just kill dwarves or something. The mole people. And not you come across a thing, but why would all the characters, no matter what character you make, why would all of them be remotely interested in what a toilet from 1960 does?
Yeah. I mean,
surely this is something.
It could be like an offhand, comment where, you vaguely describe without calling it a toilet what it is. It's like, oh, you see a porcelain bowl. It's got this sort of rectangle thing on the back and a weird, like, almost sideways apostrophe shaped piece of metal, and then you move on. If you're, hopefully your players realize, oh, okay, I see it, and then they go, oh, that's weird, and then they move on. Hopefully they aren't, obsessing over, what.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out what technologies it might have.
Yeah. And there's no water in it, so there's no water in it, so they're never going to figure out what it's intended to do. But maybe like the writings in English on there are this mysterious, that's the magical language that they're writing in, is just some all of its old technology that only understands like English voice recognition, and so but nobody speaks English anymore. So whenever somebody's casting their magic spell, really they're just saying like, Alexa, armed turrets.
Now, if your players are going to be in a game and you think they're going to die, do you just give them extra HP at the start?
No, I would just like if I think they're going to die and I don't want them to die.
Yeah, like something like maybe you're teaching them how to play the game, and you want them to have some practice getting themselves hurt, maybe
Mm,
dying.
mm,
But then
uh,
you maybe
mm,
you overwhelm them. They're doing
mm,
something now. They're going to get themselves killed for sure. So you're like, okay,
mm,
here's some XP. And then you explain to them why you're giving them the XP.
mm,
What would happen to them if you don't give them XP?
mm,
I mean, you've been playing with the same players for a while. I've been playing with the
mm,
same players for a while.
mm. I what
Maybe
I
maybe
would
you don't
yeah.
find new players often.
Yeah, yeah. I actually did have a new player like a couple months ago join us, but um when I didn't do a very good job onboarding them. I just sort of threw them into the fire. But if I was getting like a whole new group of players and I didn't want them to, just, here's your first character, they're going to last a session and then you're going to have to remake a character cuz they're going to explode. Um Instead of giving them more hit points, I would just have uh they're going to be fighting against people or things that don't necessarily need them dead, they just need them gone. So making it clear that it's like, escape is an option. You can run away, your things are looking really hairy, looks like, you've been hit like 2 or 3 times and you just can't manage to hit this thing that's attacking you, well, you could try running away. um
That's a good idea.
uh, or they're fighting bandits. The bandits don't want to kill them, they just want their stuff, so they just they knock everybody out, get you the 0 HP. They don't go around and kill everybody after they're unconscious, they just take your stuff, and then you wake up in a ditch left for dead and you're like, oh man, I've got, and then you have to wander back to town. um
That's
maybe
good. Because in video games, the bad guys want to kill you until you're dead.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's how most
They
people
don't
run
just knock you out and walk away.
yeah, and that's how most people run D20 systems because the games don't explain that. They just go, oh, well, you die when you hit, 0 HP or below, your con HP. And that's the only failure state. So it must be my goal as a GM to bring all of my players to as low HP as possible. That must be what I'm trying to do here.
Well, does the rule say something like, by the way, if you reach HP 0, you die? Or does it say you must do combat rounds until everyone is dead or
Well,
standing
they
still?
don't, but they imply by the way that this is the failure state. The failure state is you're dead.
Okay.
Right, and there's no,
There's
they
no
don't give
optimum. There's no optimism.
yeah, yeah. Well, optimism or like, read, a lot of modules, especially, older 1980s, AD&D modules. And they usually don't have like an enemy morale section. It's just here's a block of stats and they beat the player's health in until until they're dead or until one of them's dead.
Yeah,
Um
I
but
think in old
yeah.
Traveler, I think the rules are you just keep fighting until everyone's
Yeah.
either dead or they retreated.
Yeah, yeah, and the retreat thing is like lots of DMs, they don't think in terms of like if a wolf is attacking me and I hit it once, that wolf's probably gonna run away. I don't need to but it's still got 43 hit points out of its 50 hit points left. And it's like, okay, well, does the wolf know that? Does the wolf know how many hit points it has? Or does it
Yeah,
know, ow, I got hit. That hurts. I don't like that.
like a shark, you just punch a shark in the
Yeah.
nose, it'll swim the other
Yeah.
direction. It still has all of
You
its
know,
health point.
bandits, you kill one, bandits try to rob you, you kill one of them. Are the rest of the bandits gonna want to keep fighting you? Maybe not. Maybe one or two of them really like that guy and they try to fight you, but
I mean, I'll do reputation
mm,
checks or morale checks with the
mm,
bandits. They
mm,
hear that you guys are good at killing people. The bandits
yeah.
might have a second thought about attacking you.
Yeah, one of the guys in the band is like whispering to the leader. It's like, those are the guys that just wiped out that village the other block down. I don't think we want to steal from them. And
Yeah.
maybe the leader goes, nah, whatever, we can take them. But none of his men want to fight, so he ends up dying, and then everybody else scrambles.
Basically.
He's surrounded by the party at, spear point, and he looks back to all of his men running for the hills, and he's the only one left there.
Hmm. Well, Tyler, I gotta go. It's been an hour.
Uh-huh. Uh,
Do you think
got
we
dinner.
talked enough about HP?
I think we did. I think it was an interesting tangent on spells too.
I was trying to stay
spells
on
are cool.
target and not
Yeah,
go
yeah,
off
uh,
course too much.
yeah, yeah. I think we got a lot covered. There's
But
a lot to talk about.
you gave me some ideas to think about.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
All right, cool. That's a good thing.
I'm glad you were
Alright.
able to stop by,
Yeah,
or I was able to stop by. One of the two.
yeah. Whichever depends on whose channel you're watching this through.
So I'll see you later, Tyler. Thanks for coming in.
Uh-huh.
That was
Thanks
fun.
for hosting. Mm-hmm.